Hello there friends! Today we're painting a beautiful flower called Plumeria. They come in different colors. They can be yellow, pink, purple, and today I would like to paint one single Plumeria and explain how we do it because I think this flower is very special. First, I would like to show you the structure of it and how we can draw it with the pencil on paper in black and white. So this way you will see the three-dimensionality of the flower without being distracted on the color. So Plumeria usually has, or always has, 5 petals, and every petal is kind of overlapping each other. So no matter how you look at the flower, no matter what perspective of the flower is, you always see that one petal is overlapping another one, and all of them are growing from the heart, from the center over here. So for example, here you can see the left side of the petal, but the right side of the petal is kind of hidden a little bit by this petal because this one is covering the other one. But here you can see that this part is visible, but this part is covered by this petal, and so on and so forth. So it's like a carousel. One petal is covering another one a little bit. So it's very important to remember that there's no distance between the petals here in the center. Another important part to keep in mind is that every petal usually has this white area. It's a little bit curved, it's a little bit bended, like so. Or if I take a piece of paper, probably will be better to see like this. It's a little bit curved. And usually the curved part is white when the rest of the petal is colored yellow or pink or whatever. So on the sketch you can see that I put some shadows, and because I shadowed the petals, the white part is standing out a lot, and I want to do that in our watercolor painting too. And finally, when one petal is overlapping another one, naturally it's casting shadow on the previous petal. That's why you see that every petal has highlighted area, lighter, and shadowed area. This is the area where a petal is kind of overlapping a little bit. I removed my pencil line, but now I want to talk about colors a little bit before we start. So as I said, the colors for this painting are going to be very limited. It's going to be a purple yellow flower. So for yellow I'll be using cadmium yellow, pretty simple. For purple, or better to say violet, I'll be mixing my own violet by using magenta, so it's cold red, with blue. And my nice violet color turns out like this. I like it a lot. I'll be using that as my main violet. And I would like to point out that it's actually a very interesting color combination, because if you look at the color wheel and find violet on it, you'll see that the that the opposite color to violet is yellow. So technically this flower is literally consists of 2 complementary colors compared to each other. They have the most contrast, and they are both present in one flower. I think it's beautiful. So I'll start with wet and wet technique, applying just clean water on one of the petals. But I'll put water all the way close to the white line, to this white line that we discussed, but I will not cover it. I want my pigment to go all the way close to it but not leak into it. So water is like a natural guide and like a natural border. It's just going to stop, the paint is going to stop where the water stops. First, I will take cadmium yellow, and it's not very watery. I mean, it is pretty liquidish, but it's not dripping water. And first, I will introduce bits of yellow. Clean my brush, rinse it, and spread my yellow all over the petal except the part that's supposed to be white, the one that's bended a little bit. Now I'm going to pick my violet, the one that I just mixed recently, and carefully introduce it onto the petal. Usually in Plumeria flowers, the brighter, darker tone is at the end of the petal, the edge of the petal, and the lighter one is more closer to the center. And because our layer is still wet, the colors are mixing smoothly without creating sharp connecting lines or sharp areas. Here, where the petal is close to the next one, so the next one is kind of dropping shadow on it, this part should be a bit darker. To achieve darker color, I'll take my pink and blue that I already used to mix more of violet, and I'll add a tiny drop of green. Why green? Because green is complementary to red. Remember the cold red, which is magenta, or pink also that we call it. It's a complementary color which allows us to achieve darker tone. So I'm using this as a shadow in the area where the second petal will overlap and cast the shadow naturally. Make sure that your line is nice and smooth here, so that we keep this side of the petal clean. While I leave this petal to dry, I can move to the other one, but I will work on the petal that is not directly connected to the one I just worked on to avoid paint leaking into the petal. So clean water first. Covering only the area of a petal without touching the white part of it. Yellow. I'm not even going all the way to the end of the petal with my yellow, because here will be violet, and even though yellow is lighter, I don't want the two colors overlap because I'll get a darker tone, and I want to keep my violet nice and pure. I'll mix a bit more of violet, and it's pretty dry on my brush, which is good for what I'm doing right now, because then the colors do not chaotically bleed into each other, but moving slowly because there's not too much water on my brush. Remember to be careful with our white area over here. I'm touching it with my brush and carefully outlining it, keeping it nice and clean. And at the same time, gently connecting my violet with yellow. If you get some sharp lines, it means that your previous layer already got dry and you need to reactivate it a little. Also, right in the heart of Plumeria, sometimes the colors are getting a bit hotter and yellow is leaning towards orange, which I think is nice. So I drop a little bit of orange in there too, but just here in the center. Also, I need to show my shadow while the layers are still wet so that the colors collaborate and connect smoothly. So by adding a little bit of green into my violet mix, I allow the pink color that was in the base of my mix to become darker, which essentially makes my purple color darker. And if you need to correct certain strokes, you can do that with a semi-wet brush. So you want to rinse it over the tissue and carefully correct your lines. And we're moving to the next petal. I think this side is already dry, plus we have this little buffer of the white area. So we can safely work on our petal over here. I guess the challenge here is to make sure that violet doesn't overpower a flower, so that we still have enough of yellow, so that, like here for example, the purple, it went really far and yellow is barely visible. And at the same time, because watercolor is transparent, you can still see yellow color shining through violet over here, creating calmer, nicer tones. But it's important to remember to be balanced, to not allow purple go too far into the petal. Bits of orange. And here we go with our violet. In some places, to make it even more interesting, you might want to have pieces of violet that have red dominating if you mix your own violet by yourself. And here, for example, my yellow is starting to sort of disappear. So what I can do is introduce yellow again to make it stronger. And because the layer is still wet, I can do that without getting sharp lines. And now we only have 2 petals left. I think we can work on this one. Carefully outlining the petal. Now the final petal over here, clean water. Remember, we have the curved white part of the petal here, so do not touch it. And here on the right as well. And finally, we need to show the very heart, the very center of our Plumeria. So I'm mixing darkest version of my violet. So it's green, blue, and magenta, but very concentrated one. And drop it right in the center over here, sort of connecting all of the petals. I take my brush, rinse it over the tissue so it's not too wet, and soften the hard edge of this dark area that I just created, so it doesn't look too much cut out. Here it naturally licked into the petal, so it's okay. The other ones are dry, so the paint didn't flow, but it's fine. Now we have the final two steps. First is to show that actually here we have this white banded area, but because the background is white and white is white, we don't really see it. So there are two options to fix this. It's either to create a tiny shadow at the edge of each banded area, which is a very delicate work, or we can take an easier way and create a green background, which I think is going to be more fun. So let's work on the background. My Plumeria is completely dry, and now I will put clean water everywhere around the flower, but going very closely to the white curved part without covering it with water. We need to keep it dry. That's important. And everything else you can just cover with water, and then we're gonna add the background. And now green color. I'll take green, add some red to it so it's a bit calmer, because my green is very bright. Red is complementary color, as we know. It's gonna make it a bit darker and also calmer. And now I am carefully introducing the background. For more interesting effects, I'm adding different type of tones into my green, for example, blue. And just let the colors move around. Adding yellow would be cool as well, so I might as well just drop some yellow so that the background looks more interesting. Most importantly, we need to go around the flower without covering the white area, the bended, curved part of the flower. And just like so, we created a Plumeria flower just by simply outlining it with darker tone, with the background, creating the background for our flower. And this is called negative space technique. When we are creating the shape of a subject by outlining it and basically creating background. And now there's just a few details that I think would be nice to add. For example, some splashes. I need to protect my Plumeria, so I cover it with the piece of paper, so paint doesn't drop on the actual flower. And here we go. If you have too much water, you can move your sheet, let the paint move as well, and land somewhere where you like it more. And there will be a part number 2, the details that I was mentioning before that we need to finish, is the little details, the little veins on our flower. To finish off the painting, I will take the same violet color that we have been using the whole time, and with the pretty dry brush, I'll create very nice and thin strokes with a very relaxed wrist. We will create some veins. Here it's important to make your strokes nice and thin and delicate, so they don't look too heavy and too thick. And that's it. We have our Plumeria ready, and don't forget to sign it and show us your result. See you in the next tutorial.